It's a new day on Deep Space Nine and a pleasant start for Sisko and Cassidy. They're waking up together in his quarters and, despite his attempts to prevent it, she goes off to check on her ship. He might as well go and do his job too then. Edington, who's back again and remembered he's a security officer this episode, is telling us about a shipment of replicators to the Cardigans. They've been getting nobbled by the Klingons all over the place, and some supersized replicators will let them start rebuilding key infrastructure. Equipment capable of replicating large-scale items is a very useful thing, though, which is why we've had reports that the Maquis are interested in nicking it. That this would also stick one to the Cardigans at the same time is just a bonus. Maquis activity has increased now the Cardigan military is off having to fight a proper war rather than killing civilians. They might even see this as a chance to settle the colony disputes along the border once and for all by kicking out any Cardigans in the area. Those replicators are coming through DS9, so we're going to be on increased security until they're not our responsibility anymore. And that means bringing any suspicions to Sisko's attention too, even if those suspicions are that Cassidy Yates might be smuggling for the Maquis. It's all circumstantial at the moment, and neither Odo nor Edington are making any solid accusations, but it's still enough to piss off Sisko. Despite this, or perhaps because of it, he suggests they might be able to think of a reason to search any ship once it's docked with the station, for safety. Somebody paying less attention to safety is plain simple Garak. He's at a spring ball game with Bashir, but he's watching Zial, the extramarital daughter of Seagull Dukat. Bashir warns him off the idea of initiating a conversation with her. Seagull Dukat hates him, and Kira, who's watching over the kid, thinks he's a dick too, so Bashir says any attention would be very ill-advised. Plain simple Garak has been exiled here after the Cardigan withdrawal for close to 4 years now, though, and may well consider the danger a price worth paying for talking to one of his own people. Sisko's cooking dinner for the family, and that includes Cassidy now. A question from Jake about her travels gives Sisko a chance to probe for details on her route, an unusually long journey time being one of the things Odo and Edington thought was suspicious. Cassidy's somewhat evasive and eventually tells him to check her logged flight plan if he's that interested, which puts a stop to the whole thing. Plain simple Garak's probing goes somewhat better, a little maybe joking maybe not inquiry about whether he's in danger by being alone with Zial goes well enough, and he reciprocates the gesture. Such friendly gestures are absent down in a docking port. Odo's telling Cassidy that there's been a viral outbreak on Bajor, and her cargo will need to be inspected to make sure it's not infectious. Normal procedures are for people who aren't banging the station commander, though, so Cassidy gives Sisko a call to pull some strings. She's got a ship to meet, she says, and the inspection will bugger her timetable. Edington advises against it and says we should still check her ship, but Sisko lets her leave anyway. He's had another idea for how we can keep an eye on things. That other idea involves breaking a treaty with the Romulans, specifically the one that said we can't use the Defiant Sneaky Bastard mode on this side of the wormhole, but fuck them, as we're going to tail Cassidy anyway. The choice proves prudent as her ship changes course towards the Badlands, an area favoured by the Maquis and somewhere she specifically said she avoided. Curious then that a Maquis ship would meet with her, and more curious still that she'd teleport over some of her cargo. Questionable meetings are happening back on DS9 too, as Zial is visiting plain simple Garak's shop. She's not here for a change of wardrobe, though is complimentary of his work, but rather to invite him to join her in a holosuite. She's got a Cardigan sauna program, and he's the only other person who can handle the temperature, so they agree to test it out a couple of days from now. The bad news is we now have proof Cassidy's working with the Maquis. The good news is we did a science to the teleport wibblies, and it looks like the cargo was organic, so probably food or medicine. Sisko doesn't care. He's abrupt with those around him switching entirely to business mode, and dismisses Dax when she tries to comfort him. Perhaps he's saving all his acting energy for when Cassidy's around. It can't be easy smiling at somebody you know you're going to put in prison, especially when she says she's making another trip. The news is serious enough for him to decline and offer to watch a baseball game with her and Jake, instead meeting with Odo and Edington to let them know about her plans. They're both in agreement that if she makes another rendezvous, the Defiant should intervene and grab everybody present. The prospect of that turning nasty makes Edington say he'd rather not be responsible for it, which is an odd choice for somebody who just gave a speech about doing what he's told back on the Defiant, but Sisko agrees and lets him stay on the station to oversee the giant replicators we've all forgotten about by this point. Sisko himself will take charge of the Defiant and deal with whatever happens. Well, perhaps. Anyway, he visits Cassidy as she's about to leave and tells her that they should just piss off somewhere nice for a few days and let their underlings take care of things while they're gone. She declines with genuine sadness, her tone suggesting she understands what's just happened and the choice she's made. Speaking of consequences, let's catch up with plain simple Garak. Kira visits him while he's serving Quark and, through the application of percussive persuasion, makes him understand that harming Zial in any way would result in his next lesson being conducted in a vacuum, with no environment suit. As it happened, plain simple Garak had considered cancelling anyway. Zial loves her father, and her father wants to see him dead. But Kira's visit has changed his mind. He thinks if there was any genuine danger of Zial trying to off him, Kira would have stayed out of things and let her have a go. Unless Kira coming here was a double bluff, points out Quark, and this was meant to provoke him into going after all. Back on the Defiant, we've been watching Cassidy's ship circle for hours, and nobody's turned up. That in itself is odd, as she should have scarpered as soon as the contact didn't show, but there's no point guessing about it when we can just go over there and ask her. They're obviously a little surprised to see the Defiant appear in front of them. Well, most of them. Cassidy says she had an idea Sisko would be following. In fact, she told her contact another run was too dangerous, but the delivery was deemed too important. Odd then that nobody came. Odd, at least, until you consider why somebody would want the Defiant and Sisko away from the station. Back on DS9, Edington is telling his security people there's been a change of plan. The giant replicators are now to be teleported onto a freighter that will arrive shortly, and nobody is to speak to anybody about it, including the Bajoran station security. They file out as Kira comes in, Edington having called her. That's because having her here makes it easier to poop yellow at her and take over the station. Nobody on DS9 is picking up the phone when the Defiant tries to call them, which means Sisko's only option is rushing back there. Odo's not chuffed at flying away from Cassidy Yates, assuming that she'll scarp her, but Sisko's not in the mood for a debate. It's all pointless anyway. Edington tells a junior officer that he'll be accompanying the replicators and leaves the guy in charge of everything. Edington waits for him to go before taking off his badge and scarpering with all the stuff he's just nicked for the Maquis. Starfleet's keeping a lookout for a ship full of half-inched replicators, but nobody expects to find it. Edington didn't get this far by not having a plan. Part of that plan seems to be an unexpected call from him. He doesn't much care for Sisko asking him about his reasons and just gets to the point. Leave us alone. The Maquis have done nothing to the Federation. I mean, except for this theft, obviously, and that time Tommy Riker tried to nick the Defiant, and the sabotage and abduction performed on a Federation-administered space station, and recruiting all those Starfleet people, but other than those, they've done absolutely nothing wrong. He thinks the only reason the Federation hates the Maquis so much is because the Maquis rejected them. Sisko retorts with the reasoned and rational argument that Edington can go fuck himself with a wire brush, and he intends to dedicate a fair portion of his time to make sure it happens. Plain simple Garak is getting to the point too, and when arriving at the sauna where Zial's already resting, just comes straight out and asks her if this is part of a plot to kill him. She admits that she'd thought about it. Her dad hates him, and he was responsible for making her grandfather do a deed too. But he's also an outcast just like her, and frankly, there aren't many other people queuing up to socialize with them, so under the circumstances, putting everything to one side and being civil is the preferred option. The admission is enough to convince plain simple Garak she's genuine, so he discards the weapon he was hiding just in case, and relaxes in the heat instead. That just leaves the business of Cassidy. She's returned to the station to face the music, after letting off her crew at a Maquis camp. She came back because she wanted to, which is why Sisko left her with the choice. She'll likely go to prison for what she did, something for which she makes no apologies, but says she'll return afterwards so they can pick up where they left off. She's led away by the guy Edington put in charge earlier, so we'll leave Sisko to adapt to sleeping alone again, until the next adventure. A surprise return for the Maquis, and a serious one to boot. We've had offhand mentions of them a few times this season, but we've not really seen anything noteworthy since the first half of Season 3, where Tommy Riker nicked the Defiant. Somebody on the writing team hadn't forgotten about them though, and decided now would be a good time to revisit the idea. The logic is solid too. Cardassia being busy fighting off a Klingon invasion creates a perfect opportunity for the Maquis to expand their activity in the demilitarized zone. And industrial-scale replicators are a tasty target. Something that can create anything from hand weapons up to modular parts for ships is a significant increase in capacity. We're talking about a shipment that was meant to get multiple planets back on their feet. Such a scale of production shifts the Maquis military bottleneck from munitions to personnel pretty much instantly. And this fact alone creates perhaps my one criticism of the plot. We are essentially shipping 12 murder factories, and there's no mention at all of any user restrictions on them. No codes or authorization requirements, no removal of vital parts to be shipped via other means, no separation of any kind. Frankly, we already do more than that when we ship bank cards and PIN codes in different packages. Having no such safety measures in place for machines that can create the means to nuke whole planets seems like a significant oversight. That being said, placing more focus on the replicators in this story would likely have undermined the reveal, so we'll overlook the potential shortcoming as narratively useful. Speaking of the reveal, Edington is now full mask off. His irregular presence, as whatever the script needed him to be once we started ignoring Defiant security again, is now over, and he's off doing full-time terrorism. This is a failure for Sisko personally, or at least will be recorded as such. He can say he didn't want Edington in the first place and fought the replacement of Odo for Starfleet-related matters, but Starfleet Command will still need somebody to blame for the person they foisted on us being a plant. That might be one of the contributing factors to Sisko's anger at the end. It's not like this is the first person he's known who buggered off to join the Maquis, so his threat at the end to break Edington is quite the escalation. There are other reasons for that anger too. The obvious one is the betrayal itself. Sisko being pissed off at Eddington's theft and the disregard for the oaths he swore to Starfleet is understandable, especially as someone under his command. But I suspect there's a third reason too, and one that might be the most potent. I think he's also pissed off that Edington considered Cassidy an acceptable casualty. Being caught for delivering medical supplies to an underdog fighting force is a noble cause, one worth going to prison for. Being sacrificed as a pawn by your own people so they could get guns instead of medicine, that sullies everything she's done to help them. Sisko may be angry because the Maquis screwed him, but I reckon he's far more angry because the Maquis screwed her. A handful of other bits to cover from this one then, and all connected to plain simple Garak. The first is that the conversations between he and Zial give us an insight into what Cardigan's social interactions might be like. It essentially boils down to, "Hello, have I done anything that makes you personally want me dead?" In a society with so much scheming and plotting, I suppose having an upfront declaration of non-aggression is a useful tool. That way you can dedicate all of your energy to looking for the hidden blades, rather than the overt ones. The second point is Zial's assertion, and plain simple Garak's admission, that he was responsible for the torture and death of her grandfather. While it's possible she could be referring to the father of her Bajoran mother, we'll assume that she's talking about Seagull Ducat's dad, as that's already been mentioned previously. The Season 3 episode Civil Defense had Seagull Ducat blaming plain simple Garak for the trial of his father. Based on what we've learned about the Cardigan legal system, the torture and murder aspects of Zial's claim are pretty solid conclusions. The last point, and perhaps the most fun, is that we learn Quark has the potential to out-scheme plain simple Garak. When he says Kira's visit means Zial is safe, Quark suggests her intervention might have been part of the plan. That idea hadn't occurred to plain simple Garak, or perhaps he was too invested in the topic to view it objectively. Whether Quark's skills in the matter are innate or learned from the years he spent around Cardigans while they operated the station is unknown, but the idea that Quark has the potential to match or even exceed plain simple Garak's underhandedness serves to remind us once more that Quark values the game just as much as the reward. End of episode.
What about the board game Hero Quest? There's a literal magician in it.
No.
Okay, what about the song I Put a Spell on You? Often attributed to Nina Simone, but actually a cover of an earlier song by Screaming Jay Hawkins.
No.
Oh, what about the 1989 comedy film The Wizard?
That isn't even about magic. They play video games.
Right, well, what about
For the love of Christ, we're not going to accidentally stumble onto real magic by looking at everything that mentions spellcraft.
Maybe not, but we won't get out of here by moping around either, will we? Have you got any better ideas?
Sigh, no. No, I do not.
Then I say we watch a few episodes of the late 80s to early 90s UK kids TV show Nightmare and see if Treguard can give us some tips on spellcasting. Oof.